Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 17 of the Variety Gaming Podcast. We've thrown this week's featured game into the oven and unfortunately left it too long in there. It's burnt because it's overcooked. Well, twice overcooked, Overcooked 2. And later on in the show, we're going to play a game of Steam Key Roulette, a segment where we buy packs of random keys and hope to get something good. Find out what we got later. But first, my co-host with the Amazon Prime ordered beard, 2-day delivery, quick glue on job, it's Rhaiu. Tell us about Overcooked 2, our featured game.
All right, so Overcooked 2. It's going to be developed by Ghost Town Games and Team 17 Digital, published by Team 17 Digital. Overcooked returns with a brand new helping of chaotic cooking action. Journey back to the Onion Kingdom and assemble your team of chefs in classic couch co-op or online play for up to 4 players. Hold on to your aprons. It's time to save the world. Again. It's available on Nintendo Switch, PS5, PS4, Xbox One, and PC. The release date is April 1st, 2020. So, this game, to tell you a funny story, I am banned from ever playing this game with my friends. And I warned you, Atrax, and for those listening, I warned Atrax when he said, hey, we're going to do Overcooked 2 this week. I was like, I am not allowed to play this game anymore. And Atrax understands why. I turn into a Wish.com Gordon Ramsay and just start fussing at people because they're not going fast enough.
Yeah,
watching the video.
last page of Fiverr Gordon Ramsay imitator over here. Oh my goodness. I thought like, oh well, at least he's gonna have the skill to back it up. No. It's just trash talk in the kitchen. With Rhaiu. Oh.
So, a funny story. First time I ever played Overcooked. I had just turned 21 and was drinking while trying to play Overcooked. I was like, this is a bad combination. And it was fun. I mean, after a couple of drinks in, you get a little bit more free, so to speak. And it definitely made it a little more interesting to play the game. I was very loud. I was loud when we were playing Atrax. And believe me, if you're watching the video of this and you see like some of the things happening, believe me, there was a lot more chaos happening on the microphone. So, but it is just as hectic as the first Overcooked. The recipes, the different obstacles they try to put in. Like, I'm not a fan of the secret level that we did where one side has everything and the other side just has like 2 or 3 things. I'm not a fan of those. It makes it a little bit more, hectic and chaotic and stressful. And I'm like, I really feel like I shouldn't be like the only one over here to do this.
So to quickly back up what you're saying, by the way, you're talking mad smack the entire time we get up to the hidden level. And then all of a sudden, the turned tables, and we're in the hidden level, and you got to suddenly work hard for once in the kitchen. You want me to carry you. And this game is so Are you telling me I have to throw you the flour, and I have to chop the fish, and I have to get you the dishes, and I have to chop the meat? Oh, poor me. Sure. And
Hey.
For a quick recap, those of you who don't know what this game is, it is literally you are in a kitchen, make recipes, and get them out as fast as possible.
If you ever played Diner Dash back in the day, that's exactly what this is. Just a little bit more. You're not taking orders, seating tables. You're making.
You know what's
food.
Fun fact? This is how gamer my family is. That's one of my grandma's favorite games is Diner Dash. She loves that game on her Nintendo DS. Just
that's
out there
crazy.
gaming. So yeah, it's a restaurant game.
Yeah, and it is fun. It is a really good time to have. But to defend myself with that, we did get 3 stars. even in the secret level. So I was capable of pulling my own weight and backing it up. So
After a couple tries, yeah. We eventually got there.
but it is really cool. Like I said, it's just as hectic. The different obstacles they throw at you, the different recipes and the complexity of the recipes. This one we got like sushi. I think like 2 or 3 in, so that was really hectic and different. And the secret level we were steaming stuff, so it got crazy. But it wasn't the second level, it was the 4th level that had the steaming. But it got crazy, and that's what this game thrives on. You have to work together, you have to work quickly, and you have to be able to know what you're doing and just, have fun while you're doing it. I do like the new characters. I know that before they had a couple in the first Overcooked, they had a few okay-ish characters. I mean, I know there's a raccoon in the previous one. This one we had a narwhal, there was a shark, a reindeer, had some humans, had a box present, I think was another one of the ones I saw. So the characters were really cool. There was a little bit more personality to them than just, oh, you're a cook, or oh, you're, a handicap raccoon. Yeah. Which was really cool to see. And I wonder if there are any more further customizations, like, oh, you have the narwhal, and then like during Halloween, maybe you can get like a little jack-o'-lantern poking on his horn or poking on his little spout or whatever. That stuff like that. I wonder if those things are in the game. I'll have to go back and look. The story's pretty funny. A lot of quips, a lot of one-liners, a lot of interesting things. I did appreciate the opening cutscene where he's opening the recipe book and, it's the unbread. I thought that was pretty cool, which is nice. Even though we're kind of revisiting, it's like, hey, now you got to do it again after the Overcooked one. It was still pretty cool that they did add their own spin to it. So it is a fun couch co-op, in my opinion, that if you're going to have friends over, if you want to bring back that traditional couch co-op feel to it, you got your buddies over, or you just want to play something with your significant other or your kids, this is a good title to pick up. It is really cool. There are some levels that I feel do require you to have more than 2 people to make them work. I know we're talking about the secret level and everything. That's one in particular. I feel like it would have gone a lot smoother had we had 2 more people, one on your side, one on my side, or one in the middle, however they would have done it. I feel that it would have been much easier. We would have been able to score higher. And even with the 4th level that we did with the steaming, having one person chopping stuff, getting things, again, more people does, in my opinion, does make the game easier. But if this is something that you and significant other or young children want to do, then it's just a fun little thing to try out.
I will say, though, I believe that the scores are higher the more people you have. So you do have to, there's a measure of try hardness. But I agree, the story has an insane amount of corny puns because overcooked vegetables. The puns are top tier, but also just the overall way they explain things. It's like wacky and caters to children, but also has certain, I don't want to say like references that only adults will get, but just like stuff that adults can appreciate. Some of the satire that most kids will just be like, haha, it's funny that he said that. But then if you're a little bit older, you're just like, oh yeah, okay, haha, that's, like truth in the comedy, if you will. That type of like satire that's just fun for all ages. But then also some of the later levels, when you get into world like 4, 5, 6, we didn't get that far in this playthrough, but I've played this game quite a bit. The first one and the second one over the course of them being released. Obviously, Overcooked 2 came out in the middle of COVID, so a lot of people were at home playing games like this. Super great to have a game like this. I played mostly on Steam. We played this time around on Game Pass, so also super cool that it's on Game Pass. But some of the later levels really require you to have proper timing, to have teamwork, and not just this like hectic. Oh, I'll just do this. I'll just do that. Obviously, it's a lot more fun if you make it just a little bit hectic. But if you want to get 3 stars, if you want to try and complete the game, you really do need to develop teamwork. And that's actually one of the main reasons I recommend this game to people. It's fun in the earlier stages as just a casual couch co-op game. You can have random new people come in and it's relatively easy to explain, like, hey, we're just trying to get all of these orders out. They pop up in the top left to show you the importance of the order and how much time you have left before you start losing money on the orders. It also tells you the recipe that people want for the order. You've got dishes that you need to wash, and then there's these steps in order to make all of the different recipes. Super easy to explain. Already, people can just jump right in. The first couple of levels are relatively simple and straightforward, but then within four, excuse me, within 4 or 5 levels, then already the difficulty ramps up and you really need to focus and work as a team. And it's really good for building teamwork and building like camaraderie, either with your friends or just, I would even argue if you're on like an esports team or something, this game could actually help you improve your teamwork because you need to clearly communicate what it is you are doing and what it is the other people around you, other people also need to communicate what they're doing and how, oh, okay, well, I'm doing the rice. And so then you're going to chop the fish. I'll run over here and grab the dish with the seaweed wrap on it and then plate this. And then you can take it and then, oh, grab the dirty dishes. You're grabbing the dirty dishes and washing that while I'm putting more rice on and grabbing another seaweed wrap. And like, you have to communicate and constantly be in tune with each other, at least a little bit, because if you're constantly clashing, no, I'm doing this, no, you're not going to get very far in the game. I mean, you're certainly not going to get 3 stars. You have to really work together. And some of the later stages are super difficult. You have sections of the kitchen falling apart. You have sections of them like moving to other sections. So sometimes your ingredients will be in one section. You have to run onto one platform, wait for it to transfer over to where your ingredients are, grab your ingredients, run back onto the platform so that it moves over, and then you can go over and cook your stuff. Like, it gets super complicated, but that's also a good thing because it allows for the developers to do some really, really cool things. And there are some super, super fun kitchens later on in the Overcooked 2 and even in Overcooked 1. I would say even go back. Both of the games can be found on the Steam sale for pretty cheap, especially even as a bundle with like all the DLC because they're already a few years old. But even so, there's so many really cool levels. There's different biomes. There's a lava level. There's a level that's up in the air, like you're floating around on hot air balloons and stuff like that. Just so many different environments and cool things that they've done with kitchens. I think there's a minecart level too. So just super diverse for the areas. And each one poses its own challenge and has its own flow to it that you need to learn. Some of them you can get 3 stars right away, but generally speaking, like in our example, the one you'll see in the gameplay, Rhaiu and I needed to play the hidden level a couple of times in order to get into the flow and to know the recipes and to know the timing of stuff. And so that makes for a lot of cool replayability too, because it's not just, oh, I have to play the same level over and over again to get like, because I keep missing this one thing. It's actually adaptive and, oh, this level has this challenge. We need to crack the code. Once we finally get in sync on this level, then it's pretty easy to hit the 3 stars because it's just you just move in that motion and you're making these recipes and stuff like that. And what adds to it even more in the second one as opposed to the first one is that you can throw ingredients. So in the first one, you couldn't throw ingredients, you just had to set them down. In the second one, you can throw ingredients, which also allows them to do some other cool stuff with the level design. So that in number 2, just in my mind, it makes Overcooked and Overcooked 2 probably one of maybe top 5, top 10 easily best co-op games of the late 2010s, early 2020s, if not 2020s as a whole. Obviously, we still have 5-6 years left, or 5 years almost left in in the 2020s. So we'll see what co-op games. Maybe Overcooked 3 comes out. Hopefully, I'm hoping. But I just think that these co-op games are just top tier because they're simple but difficult to master.
Yeah, they really are. And it's interesting you mentioned if you're on an esports team, and not even something up to esports, I think that any kind of team building exercise I think that playing this would be a very good team building exercise for anyone involved in any sort of communication, competition atmosphere, and not even just competition. So you can relate to, like for myself, when I play MMOs, we do a lot of raiding, and you're familiar, Atrax. You used to raid in WoW, and communication between everybody is super, super important. But at least for myself, playing as tanks mostly in MMOs, that's a big, like, I have to be able to communicate with people to tell them, hey, this is what's happening. And healers have to be able to communicate. And then it kind of puts you in that position, you're leading these things. So it helps you to develop the teamwork. It helps you to a little bit be more confident in yourself and like, okay, I know what I'm supposed to do with this. And then if you become good enough at your position or at whatever it is you're doing within Overcooked 2, that you're able to now take that and say, okay, I'm going to do what I'm doing and I'm going to take on this other task. Well, now you're going to make it easier for everybody else involved. So it's interesting that you mentioned that, because that was something along the same line that I had thought of as we were going through this. So like, this would be really cool. Get everybody in to play this and kind of work on it as we're trying to push content and all that kind of stuff. One thing I will say, that the size of this game as opposed to other co-op games, this game is very small as far as disk space is concerned, or memory space. It's not a big game, so you don't have to like delete other games to make room for it, which is really nice. I do like that it is small enough that you could just kind of leave it on there, set it and forget it type thing. And when you're scrolling through it, it's like, oh, I forgot I had Overcooked 2. And then you go back and you play it and you have a good time and you kind of pick up where you left off, which is really nice. And I don't remember distinctly from Overcooked 1, but in Overcooked 2, I saw there's a versus mode where you could do chef versus chef. That looks like that would be a lot of fun. I don't know if I want to go against anybody, because then it's like, oh, I just got to blame myself. But I think that's pretty cool. Get it down to where instead of like trying to beat the clock, you're trying to beat somebody else.
I'm not going to let that go, by the way, the fact that you're too chicken to stand on your own, because you're going to get demolished. You're going to get smacked in the face with a flying fish. Yeah.
Hey, don't call me chicken.
Bap.
Nobody calls me chicken.
Oh, man.
No, but it's really cool that they added a lot to it. I do like how the menu is a little bit more interactive. I like how, selecting your chef is more animated. It's a little bit more bouncy than it was in the first one. So it's just they kind of did a lot of quality of life improvements and mechanical improvements, like you mentioned, with the throwing the ingredients. That's really cool. That they've taken what they learned from Overcooked 1, made it a little bit better, made it a lot better, into Overcooked 2. We had mentioned before, actually I think it was last week when we did Kingdom Hearts talking about sequels and how that's something that is always a little bit more difficult, is to go from a very good first introduction into a title to then follow that up with a good secondary. And I think they did it here, because Overcooked 2 is still is a lot of fun, even though the game is 4 years old. I'd still play it. If Overcooked 3 does come out, it'll more than likely be something I keep on hand, just because if it is good, now I say that we're getting ahead of it, but if it is good, then I would pick it up. But Overcooked 2, definitely something that I'm going to enjoy. I'm going to keep it downloaded on my PC, even probably put it on my Switch as well, just so that way I have something to do to pass the time in between travels. Just if I don't feel like sitting at a desk, if I want to be a little bit more mobile, it's just something that's really lighthearted and you don't really have to be all serious about. So, certainly like it.
Yeah, you don't have to flame everybody, Rhaiu, just because they, are one cucumber short or something. I don't know, I forget what it was.
Look, man, if I'm short a cucumber and this is the last order on the docket, yeah, I'm gonna be upset. Like, why are we not chopping these things?
Yeah, come on. We're 1,500 out of our 300 needed for the
exactly.
For our 3
that
stars.
could have been 1,800. That could have been 2,000.
I don't know. I don't have the editing skills, but I wish I did, in order to somehow mix some of your rage-induced comments from our Overcooked 2 session into this. But I didn't capture like the game audio. I just got the video, but it was you learn all sorts of fun stuff about your friends when you play Overcooked with them. And highly recommend you pick it up again on Switch, on PlayStation, on Xbox, on PC. I believe it's even cross-platform too. So you'll be able to play, because you can do Team 17 IDs now. So you'll even be able to play cross-platform. Don't quote me on that, but I believe that is the case. Should have done the research right away. But either way, highly recommend. Always, they go on sale too, so super cheap. You know what else is super cheap? Random keys for Steam on G2A. It's something that I've done only once before, and I thought it would be fun for a recurring segment. And that is to play just a little bit of Key Roulette. Take a spin on the old Key Roulette. For those of you that don't know what it is, basically on some websites that sell game keys, you can buy a bundle of like 5 random keys, and they have different tiers. It's like $10 for 5 random Steam keys, and 3 of them were guaranteed to be over $40. Like in Steam price. That was kind of the guarantee. Now, if you do some research on these random Steam keys, you will find that, generally speaking, they're not necessarily like scam, but you don't get good keys at all. The keys that you get are like complete garbage. Well, that makes for great content. If you get completely garbage keys and like, I spent $10 and I got ripped off, and ha ha ha, fun. Take a good old spin on the Key Roulette wheel. And so that's what I did. I bought 5 keys for Rhaiu. I bought 5 keys for myself. And we actually rolled some pretty good stuff. I'm not going to lie. So my 5 that I got to pick from were In Sound Mind was one of the games, which is the game that I chose to feature for this episode. Ashes of Singularity, Escalation, Battle Academy 2, Eastern Front, Blood Exile, no clue what that game was, and Break Everything Living Room. So kind of like random keys. Ashes of the Singularity Escalation was an RTS game. Battle Academy 2 Eastern Front, also an RTS game. Blood Exile and Break Everything Living Room. I found them on Steam, but like they were just weird. They looked like asset flips, probably part of the like quote unquote scam section. They were priced over $40, but like it was actually just shovelware. So I picked In Sound Mind. In Sound Mind is a horror game, like a psychological horror game. I will give you the quick description of it. In Sound Mind is an imaginative first-person psychological horror with frenetic puzzles, unique boss fights, and original music by the Living Tombstone. Journey within the inner workings of the one place you can't seem to escape, your own mind. So this game it has overwhelmingly positive reviews, 4,000 of them. And I see why. The atmosphere right off the bat, super good, especially not knowing much about the game. It's just super, super creepy. Lots of small little things change without you really knowing. Like the pictures on the wall just change randomly for no reason. And there's all of a sudden you walk down a hallway, you turn around, and there's a chair just behind you with a note that says hello on it. And all sorts of these random creepy things. But it's not like some games where they overdo it and it's cheesy and it doesn't hit. The atmosphere in this game paces it out just enough, and it lets you figure out enough of what is going on to keep you in suspense. And like I said, the small details of like the paintings changing, or you go down one hallway and you turn left and you see, oh, this is a dead end, and you turn around and all of a sudden it's like a different hallway, or it's the same hallway, but it's just slightly adjusted. Like there's two pathways now instead of just one. And like it's just these small little things that change without being so drastic and in your face that give you into this feeling of like, whoa, I need to really pay attention to the world. There could be important clues here going on. And that being said, the story, at least the little bit that I played, the couple of hours or so that I played, they gave enough information to keep you going and understanding. Oh, okay, so I have this tape cassette. I put the tape cassette in the tape player and I hit play. All of a sudden, the room around me is transported somewhere else. And I open the door and I walk out and I'm in an apartment. And I grab something from the apartment and I walk back in and I take the tape out and I need that piece of whatever I grabbed from the apartment for another thing. And then I find a note that somebody is looking out for me because they left gun parts for me to assemble. One in this room, one in that room, one in another room. So then you go and assemble all the gun parts, and then a phone on the wall rings and you answer it, and this guy's like, oh, I see you're trying to assemble a gun, huh? Well, you know, that's not going to be any help. That's not going to be of no use. And it's really, really cool. The level design, the way different things interact with each other. I'm really looking forward to playing more of this game. I hope to finish it. I'm actually hoping that this is one of those like relatively short but really, really good and really, really compact games. Soma is another psychological type horror game that I get the same vibe from. In Sound Mind gives me the same vibe as like Soma. Just the small things. Again, I haven't finished it. To me, Soma has one of the greatest endings in gaming ever. But In Sound Mind so far is leading in a really good direction in terms of the information that they give you and the different ways that I can't go this way yet, but I can solve this puzzle. And it's a really well done game. I will say though, there are some small bugs that weren't ideal. I don't know if it was just me or if it was the game itself. Some things like getting stuck midair. Like I could jump and then I'm just in the air, just floating. I don't know if that's maybe a game mechanic that comes into play later on, but I'm just floating in the air. And then some of the platforming parts felt a lot more difficult than they really should be. So I don't know. Maybe that's just the unfortunate polish of the game. I don't know. But I'm definitely going to be finishing this game, and I will say, definitely scored with Key Roulette. I did not get shot this time. Rhaiu, I know you're itching. I can see. You're flipping your screen back and forth. You're excited to talk about the games that you got to choose from, huh?
I am. I really am. So the games that I had to choose for was Battle Ram, Drop Hunt Adventure Puzzle, Stray Gods, the role-playing musical, Expeditions Rome, and Sid Meier's Civilization 6. So definitely some good titles in there to choose from. But I decided to go with Sid Meier's Civilization 6. Reason being, I have previously played the Sid Meier's games before, so I had a basic understanding of what this game was going to be, but I hadn't played 6 yet. I absolutely love these strategy games. They are a testament to the individuals who made these games have a way with storytelling through history. Now, for me, history was one of the things that I loved at school. I always did well in it, and it was always something that I'm interested in. So a game that says, hey, we're going to take history from around the world and different civilizations, and you're going to get to play as these leaders, and you're going to have to try and expand these civilizations, and maybe you want to try it differently than they did in the real world. You know, maybe you're Genghis Khan, and instead of pillaging and murdering everyone across all of, China, you're going to be peaceful, and you're going to develop a religion, and that's how you're going to take over the world. Or, it's just, there are so many different approaches and different ways that you can go into these games that it's just I lack the words to describe how much I enjoy this game or these types of games. Whenever you go into them and you have the idea that, okay, I'm going to go in as a military, like I want to win through military might, and you start going down that tree, but then it's like you hit these roadblocks where your citizens aren't happy. Oh, well, then you got to stop your military might to focus on the citizens, or you ignore them, and then they rebel, and you have to go back and deal with that. And it stops your plan for domination. And it just shows that you have to think 4 or 5 steps ahead, almost like chess, but not fully chess, because there are instead of losing a piece here and there, you actually lose territory tiles or resource tiles, and then you're so far behind in the game that there's no chance of you catching up to others. But the different approaches to winning is something that's always fascinated me. I mentioned like being able to be like Genghis Khan and deciding to go down a religious path. Those are the types of things that I'm talking about. So we have the military, you have your religious, you have your political, you have your research, more like science victory. You have all these different ways that you can approach the game, and depending on the civilization that you choose, each one has their own advantages. So you have to kind of base it on those types of things, on how you want to play. When Atrax and I were playing it, we decided, you know what, we're just going to do random and see what happens. And, I happened to land on one that's a little bit more military. So I'm like, all right, well, we're just going to go out the gate and we're going to start fighting. And that's what we did. We found barbarians, we started fighting, and then we declared war on people and started fighting. And it's just, I like the idea of random leaders because it makes the game more, all right, how are you going to approach it this time? Whatever strategy you have in your mind is not going to work because you don't know who you're going to get until you load into the game. So that's something that I recommend people try if you have played these types of games before, or you've played this particular game itself, is that you don't play what you're comfortable with. Just throw something random out there, try a different strategy, or take somebody that you are familiar with and put yourself at a slight disadvantage. If your leaders are military, now I'm going to go with trading. I'm going to focus on an economic victory or something like that. It makes it fun. It makes it difficult in a semi-controlled sort of environment, because you can always revert back to what your leaders are known for and what their advantages are. You can do so with that. The one issue that I find with these games is always the time commitment for them. If you haven't played one of these games before, these can easily take days to finish a game like this, just depending on, one, the size of the map, two, how many players or AI are in the map, and three, what you set your winning conditions as. If you want it to be you have to fight, you have to get a military, it's probably going to take a lot longer, just because everyone kind of stockpiles. I remember playing the earlier Sid Meier's, where the AI would just stockpile their resources and they'd wait until like the very end of the game, and then they would come after you with all of their different military. So the time commitment is a bit of a big one that I would recommend. You play the game, do a couple of turns, get to a position, save it, and just kind of either go do something else, play something else, or if you've got the open slot in your schedule to do so, continue right on through. But it does make it to where, at least for me, I have a hard time finding people who will play these types of games, because again, it does take a while, and it's not like it's action packed. You're sitting here and you're basically staring at a menu. You click here, you click there, you get a little bit of action every so often, but it's a lot of menus, a lot of reading, and it doesn't appeal to everybody. But if you could find a group of people that does enjoy this sort of thing, then by all means, it's going to be a blast. I think even in Sid Meier's 5, they added a space stage expansion after, so that was something that incorporated getting into space travel. And now with this one, they have like Julius Caesar and a lot of the other older ones. I think even Abraham Lincoln was in here, so you got another president of the United States that you could choose to play as. So there is a lot of strategy that goes into the game, but it is enjoyable. One thing I will say that I do appreciate about it is, again, the attention to detail. If you zoom out on the map, you're not going to see a lot of the smaller nuances, but if you zoom in, you're seeing horses and sheep and the miners doing their job and the people who are farming and the barracks and the water's flowing, and there's just so many different things in the game that make it more immersive. And I think that's something that I've always kind of pointed to, is the immersion of the game.
And to your point, you can do the benchmark test in the graphics settings, and it will show you a lot of those really cool details. The graphics setting benchmark test that I tried, it showed you a advanced stage in the game, very late game, and it showed all of the different ships and the windmills and the farms and the mines and the this and the that and the cavalry and it zoomed across the map, this and that. Hopefully I edit the YouTube well enough to show just a little section of that, but whether it's at the beginning of this Civ 6 conversation or at the end, either way, the graphics, like you were saying, just they're super good if you want them to be there. But if your PC can't handle that, you can also dial it back and have it a little bit more hex based. And that's where I know, like you said, a lot of these games can even take up to days. And a lot of these type of hex tile games do take a really long time, but they also are so incredibly in depth. You're always learning something new. There's always something to try. And like you said, oh, well, this faction and this leader is more towards military. obviously you're super inclined to do military, but could you imagine playing a game that would take days and you've got a military faction and you're trying to make them peaceful or diplomatic or faithful or something like that? Like all sorts of crazy wild builds, and that's days, right? So lots of time can be spent, and it's not like these games are thrown together. They are very well crafted. The Civilization series in particular is very popular. One of the episodes that we did, I believe it was episode 6, was Spore. And we talked about just briefly in that episode how if you wanted to get into the Civilization games, we recommend like play Spore, give it a go because it gives you that very fundamental base tile system in the late game of Spore. Now here Civilization, it's super incredibly in depth right off the bat. You've got stuff to research, you have troops to manage, you have farms to manage, you have happiness, you have stuff to research. Like the list goes on and on and on. We only did 30 turns, but by the end of 30 turns there were like already 40 or 50 different things that we needed to manage and focus on and be aware of. And being a new player, that can be super, super overwhelming. But if you have friends to play with, or especially if you have a friend that knows how to play the game already, these games can be really, really enjoyable. And I would recommend the Civ games to pretty much anyone, especially if they look interesting to you, because just, man, incredibly in depth.
Another thing too with managing all of those menus and resources and things that you're having to take care of to play the game, every decision that you make in these types of games is going to impact you either in the short term or drastically in the long term. And what I mean by that is right out the gate, you're given a settler. That's all you're given is here you go. You have to decide where you're going to start your city, your very first city. And depending on where you put that city, based on the leader and the faction that you've chosen or the civilization that you've chosen or been assigned, it's going to drastically affect your gameplay. If you just say, okay, I'm going to settle right wherever the game puts me, but you're a civilization that benefits by being next to water and you're in the middle of the desert, you're going to be at a massive disadvantage early game to probably mid to late game at that point, just because that's how these games are designed to work. At least the instance where Atrax and I were playing, I ended up getting one, I can't remember the name off the top of my head, but they benefit from having horses. One of their special units was mounted archers on horseback, and I hit the lucky draw and ended up right in the middle of 4 or 5 different horse pastures that I was able to get the horses, was able to get my animal husbandry researched very quickly, was able to get those units by turn 30, and I was ready to declare war. Like, I'd gotten what I needed real fast, got the ball rolling, and was able to move. But that's, again, something else that really does drive me towards this game is that you have to think about, okay, if I do this now, how does this affect me later on in the mid game? How does this affect me in the late game? And that's not something that a lot of these RTS games really do. And I know I wouldn't say this is really an RTS because it's not a rapid turn strategy game. It's a little bit more slower paced. But if you do make a bad decision and settle in the wrong place, or you make a bad decision and go to war with the wrong civilization or ally with the wrong civilization, or whatever the situation calls for, if you make those wrong decisions, you have to think your way out of it. You can't just, let me hit a reset button. Just something, again, like HX is saying, if you have someone that knows how to play it, or someone that's willing to play these things because they do look interesting, take the time, just learn how the game works. Start small. There's different maps that you can do if you do a private game. My personal favorite is just Pangea, and it puts everybody on the same island. makes it easy, gets you used to scouting and finding resources and that sort of thing.
Well, do you think we overcooked this episode, or did it come out well done? Let us know in the show comments, Spotify, YouTube, or Apple. Give us a rating. Hopefully you enjoyed this episode as we went over one of the best co-op games to play, at least in our mind here on the Variety Gaming Podcast, Overcooked 2. And also, hopefully you enjoyed Key Roulette, some random games that we got in Sound Mind, and Civ 6, although Civ 6 isn't really that random. It's a pretty popular game, but that's a big score considering the other 8 games that we got in those random Steam keys. Our poll for this week, would you buy random game keys for cheap? A, yeah, I'd try it. B, no way. Or C, maybe you already have. Be sure to let us know in that Spotify poll. We hope to see you next week. Have a great one.